Mr. Zhai, welcome to the Virtual Coffee House second episode. It's so good to have you here. Such my honor.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, Mr. YaoGuang Zhai is the principal clarinetist of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. And for those who, I believe most people will know your name, but for those who don't know you, could you just give a brief introduction, please?
Thank you. Yeah, my name is YaoGuang Zhai. As Stephen said, I'm the principal of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra since 2016. And before that, I was associate and E-flat with the Toronto Symphony for 5 years. And I also got same position with the Pittsburgh Symphony right before I won the Baltimore Symphony job. And before that, I was a principal with the Shanghai Symphony for 2 years, just right after I graduated from Curtis.
Wow. So basically, a fantastic orchestral career, all laying out right after graduation. And obviously, you have won more jobs than that, but those are the biggest ones. And I just want to talk about, first of all, the experience, the process of taking an orchestral audition. And first of all, how many have you taken?
Uh, let's see. Actually, I don't know, quite a lot, around 12,
12
13.
auditions. Wow.
Yeah,
And
also
out of
13,
them,
14.
about how many have you actually won?
Uh, one, two, three, four,
Four of them.
four, 4 or 5.
Well, that's very
Yeah.
impressive because we gotta know that the odds of winning an orchestra job, and it's actually some people just never ever win one in their lifetime. So that's very impressive, I think.
Well, it's really it's a combination of um how much work you put in,
Hmm.
and it must have a clear direction, and then you believe yourself, and then during the auditions you just have to have luck. I'm
Hmm.
very lucky and I'm very fortunate. I have won these auditions, and
I want to ask that. Could you just like take us through the process of taking an orchestra audition? Like, what are the steps and how does it
sure.
work? Yeah.
Uh, First of all, a standard professional orchestra audition usually has about 4 rounds.
Mm.
So preliminary, semi-final, first round of final, and second round of final. And then most of the orchestra would ask for trial, either 1 week or 2 weeks of trials.
Mm.
And before that, is called the screening process. Is you send your resume. The committee, the orchestra, the audition committee will take a look of your resume and to decide to have you invited to the preliminary round, or you have to make a recording. So it's a long process. And I still remember from my Baltimore um, audition, the whole process took almost a year. I
Wow.
remember I sent my resume in August, and the original audition was scheduled in either November or December, but somehow they postponed until February of
Mm.
next year.
Mm.
And then my trial was uh, April, and there's the other person. So in the very last round, it's just me and another candidate. So
Mm.
the other person trial was in June. So I got a phone call from the orchestra officially uh, in June. So start from August to June.
Oh wow.
So that's almost a year.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so it's like if you won job, for example, today, you're not just gonna play with the orchestra tomorrow. There's a period you have to wait, or
Yeah, but
yeah.
it really depends on orchestra, depends on committee or the
Oh,
music
okay.
music director. Because when I auditioned for the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, and the same with Pittsburgh, I won the job on the same. Well, for Toronto it took me 2 days, but for Pittsburgh it took me just one day. You know, I for Pittsburgh I played one round in the morning. I got all to advance to the semifinal, so I played the semifinal and then
Hmm.
final, another round of final, and then the personnel manager, the music director, start talking to me, just say, I want the job. So it really depends. Different orchestra, different committee. But I would say especially nowadays, most of the orchestras, they would want to, they would be careful because there's a lot of people, they take audition really well, but to play well for audition or play in the orchestra is two different things. Some people can do really well in the auditions, but they sort of lack of experience, or maybe not as musical, maybe just so most orchestras, they want to see if this person can actually fit in as a ensemble player, as a team player.
Okay, so it's about like a cooperation more than being a soloist. Basically, it's more about playing and blending in with your peers and colleagues. And let's talk about your preparation for take an audition. How many repertoires, how many hours a day practice, and how long your preparation before actually taking on the live audition?
Well, it definitely takes a lot of preparation. I remember before the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra audition, because I was already playing with the Toronto Symphony, so after rehearsal or concerts, I would come home to practice another 2 or 3 more hours.
Oh wow!
So it's playing total. It's a lot playing. But I would say, for my experience, the preparation starts when I was a student. If you prepare right before the audition, I would say it's kind of late. So actually, for your age, I think it's perfect if you start preparing now. It's just, that's something my teacher, Mr. Don Montanaro, who passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately, he's always telling me, you have to, when I was about your age, he's always telling me you have to start preparing now, or it's going to be too late. Just pick something hard like Daphnis or Shastinai or Firebird as the daily routine. After long tone scales, you spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes on Daphnis, and then on Firebird, or just to have them in your hands, or otherwise it's going to be late.
So when you were a student, you already had a very narrow focus, like orchestral positions are gonna be my life focused goal.
Actually, that's an interesting topic, because I know. What of course, as a Chinese music student, I really wanted to be a voiced. My role model was, Lang Lang. Because he's a little bit older than me, but we went to the same school. I would see his concerts, and also YaoGuang Wang. She was my roommate. I really want to have a solo career. But when I come to the States, my first teacher, Mr. Yehuda Gilad, really put me into I wouldn't say right track, but to kind of, he wanted me to. I remember one lesson, we just talked for, I don't remember, almost 40 minutes. He tried to convince me. He just said, why don't you try to become an orchestra player, and then you can have your solo career, because being an orchestra player, you can also play concertos, you can play recitals and chamber music. So being a healthy musicians. So that's where I started to sort of learn about orchestra playing, and then enter to Curtis. That's really, I would say, um, Mr. Montanaro and Curtis really pushed me into orchestra playing. Yeah.
And you've been having I don't know, many years of orchestral playing experience. Do you still get nervous when you perform a solo or be on stage? And and you played solo repertoires with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, the Weber too. Do you feel nervous still?
Sure. Well, for the Weber second concerto, I played with the Baltimore Symphony. That's right after my son was born.
That's right.
So so yeah, so around that period, I was nervous because
Hmm.
I was nervous about other things. Like I
Okay.
still remember the second concert, right before I went on stage, I still had to check my phone and see if the baby is okay, if
Right.
my family is doing okay,
Right.
and then rush to on the stage. So that's something unique. But to answer your questions, yes and no.
Hmm.
Um, yes, I still do get nervous, especially when I play when I have a big solos, like we just did a Shasti Night back in January. I was felt pressure because it's it's a big solo and
Hmm.
it's not easy. However, I think that's a good thing because I think the nerve, the the pressure give you would push you to another level. I
Hmm.
think I'm talking about musically. So I always try to create different things, especially on stage during the moment. I would just focus into the music. So in the Baltimore Symphony, we have three concerts a week. So each
Every single
concert,
week?
yes, every single week.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
so each performance, for example, like the Shasti Night, I try to do something different musically. Of course, I'm nervous, but I use that as the energy to push me to be more creative. And to be honest, I think that's a good thing.
So you said every week you have three concerts during the season.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
every program will have a three concerts.
so do you have like a brand new program every week or
Yes,
a brand new
yeah,
program every week?
yes, yeah,
Oh wow.
absolutely.
And those are like big programs.
Oh, it depends. Sometimes big, sometimes
Hmm.
big programs in a row. Like we did the Brahms four, and I don't remember something. And last year we did a Pines of Rome and Rock two and Brahms three,
Hmm.
almost like 3 weeks in a row. So it's kind of big. But then sometimes we have pops. We have pop weeks. We do movies. We do other different style. So whenever we have pops, we have movies, we get less pressure.
Hmm.
So I'm just sort of enjoy the music, enjoying playing with people and or trying out different masterpieces or different ways.
Hmm. But it's
Yeah.
always a constant preparation. So how long is the whole season, by the way?
Well, officially we are now we are still 52 weeks orchestra.
Hmm.
There's in negotiation between, but still, is basically from September to June to end of June. That's our regular season, and
Hmm.
then end of early July we start our summer season.
Oh, okay. But
Yeah.
you do get some summer off. But it is still a
Yes.
very long season to
Yes.
to
Yeah.
always. I think the level of intensity is always up high, and you have to always be prepared to take on an
Absolutely.
orchestral concert. It's very difficult. What makes a principal different from the other players? And besides obviously there's a boosting the salary, but I believe there's much more leadership that takes into that role.
Of course, principal has has more solos than associate, second, and bass. But I think the biggest role is the principal has to set the tune for your sections, like like what kind of tune you want to create, what kind of musical direction you want to create, and then you discuss with your colleagues, and then you try to become a one big section.
When you take an orchestral audition, when they host an audition, how many people usually apply to that job, and with like how many people do they cut out of each round?
I would say usually the number is, for my case, I don't really know because I never asked. But
Okay.
but we just had a second clarinet position open up
That's
last
right.
year. I remember the applicant was 159 or 161. I mean, not just around 160, the number. So we had to cut to around 40 to 50. We invited between 40 to 50
Oh, that's
to the
from the pre-screens,
pre.
basically.
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's from.
You said there's multiple rounds, so around 50 people go to the first round of the live, correct?
Right, right.
And then
Around
how many
50.
cut from there?
I mean, and also based on the resume, we the orchestra usually invites people directly to the semifinal. So there will be a couple people already in the pre-advance to the semifinal.
Oh, okay.
So usually in the semifinal is around, again, really depends on the orchestra or
Right.
the level, the auditions. So it can be from 8 to 16, 20 people in the semifinal. It can be few, can be a lot. But
And
in the first round final will be much smaller number, around 5, 7, 8, and then the last round of final will be just either 2 or 3.
yeah, and obviously only one person won the job, so
Right.
so it's
Unfortunately,
yeah, so it's
okay.
quite it's 160 people to one person. That's quite extravagant odds to win an orchestral job. It's
It is. It's a combination of how much work you put, your
right.
style, how well you played on the audition day, and how much luck you have.
Yeah,
That's
and
just
I think many people, or especially I think students would think if I sound good, then it's gonna work. But there's many side factors that goes into that position, and people. I mean, people have different standards of what sounds good. So
that's right.
that's why I think that's why it's so difficult
Yeah,
to get an
absolutely.
orchestra job. Um,
Right.
what's, for example, the busiest day you have? What is it like?
Well, the busiest day is we have a double rehearsal.
Mhm.
So so basically we have one, two, three. We have a so we normally have 4 rehearsals per program. For example, we have a rehearsal Tuesday morning, and then Wednesday we have a double morning and afternoon, and Thursday we have morning rehearsal as a dress rehearsal, and Thursday evening, Friday evening, and Saturday evening we have concerts. So obviously Wednesday is my busiest day. Or Thursday, we have a concert on and and the dress rehearsal.
So it's basically, well, I met you, I think 2 years ago at Interlaken Arts Camp, and so basically it's like that. The experience at the camp that we get like a full week of rehearsals and then putting on a concert every week.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh wow. That's interesting. I didn't know it was that intensity of in the professional world. But
absolutely. So that's why I think the interlocking is doing really wonderfully for you, for the young musicians, because it's very similar to the professional orchestras. You have a big programs almost every week. You have to prepare way ahead of.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every week is new program. I remember it was very intense for me because I never had that in my life, it was really difficult to do that, but I improved so much just in one summer. So
Right.
I believe you also teach, and so what do you do besides? And you probably also have recitals, right? Besides the
Yeah,
orchestra.
yeah. Since last September, I accepted a job offer in Boston, the Boston Conservatory,
That's
as
right.
their guest professor.
Hmm.
So yeah, so the last year has been really busy for me because I have to commute between Baltimore and Boston, not
Oh
every
wow.
week, but or every week or every other week. So like Sunday, on Monday, I would fly to Boston, and Monday evening I come back, and Tuesday I go for rehearsals and concerts. So and then and I also have a 2 years old son. I have my family to take care of.
Right.
So it's pretty intense.
Yeah, I bet. And do you also take private lessons, private students?
I do, but it really depends on my time. If I'm really
Right.
busy, yeah, I just I don't have much of time for private lessons.
And you've also take master classes, right? You give master classes. You also put recitals, sometimes, and it's such a busy schedule.
Yeah, it is. But as I mentioned earlier, I really when I was I mean like younger than you were, when I was
Right.
very young, dreamed to become a soloist. So still playing a recital, playing concertos is one of my favorite thing to do.
Obviously, all the orchestras are shut down with suspension. I don't know when it's gonna come back, but um, as orchestra musician, what has that been different in terms of just n- having no concerts, and what are the downsides of it, of this virus that brings to you?
Well, obviously, I really miss being on stage
That's right. Yeah.
to perform with my wonderful colleagues to enjoy the great music. I mean, that's something I really miss.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, and also, I mean, fortunately, the Baltimore Symphony, financially we're doing okay,
Okay.
so we are still paid.
Hmm.
We are still getting paid until September. But that's the same thing for every orchestra in North America. Nobody knows what's going to happen after
Hmm.
September in the fall. We don't know. No one knows when can we back to stage.
Right.
Is it like in the winter or next year? We don't know. Yeah.
And what do you think? Like, what do you think this traditional format of um, classical music? I mean, you, I think probably noticed that it's very interesting because all the concerts I go to watch, the Chicago Symphony. I haven't had a chance for the Baltimore Symphony, but hopefully one day I will. Um, and obviously Berlin Philharmonic, those big orchestras. You see a lot of elders in the audience. You don't see a lot of teenagers. I mean, in the United States, in China, it's probably mid age, but um, just what do you think of that? And in terms of a traditional format of industry, where is it gonna go? Maybe in 10 years or so.
Yeah. I think that's a big problem in all over the world. That's it's
Hmm.
not only in this not only in North America. You go to a concert, you'll see the you see most people are above 50 or 60. Yeah. So so the music education is very important. I really think every orchestra or every institute or we should pay more attention to younger generation to younger people. But it's hard to tell for the next 10 years.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I
Obviously.
yeah, but I still believe we're going to be okay because still music is something that's really special, and I think everybody needs it. You know, everyone in the world especially now, especially during this difficult
Right.
times, but it needs something to cure yourself, something to listen to make yourself calm, to make yourself relax and happy, have joy. So music, especially live music, like I mean, of course, right now, everybody is doing online concerts,
Hmm.
uh, and I think that will be the future, to have
Hmm.
more online concerts. However, there's big difference between live, between you go actually see and hear the concerts, then you sit at home, you watch on your computer. So
The energy is very different.
it's totally
The
different.
acoustics very different, and yeah, you definitely feel more of a communication between the artist and the audience when you're doing it live, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And when you sit in the live audience, you feel you have something. There's something very special between you and the musicians on stage. It no matter the technology, how
Hmm.
good the technology is, you know, there's something special for the live concerts.
Yeah, and also I think I agree with your point as it's the education aspect that
Yeah,
I think the institutions are not quite implementing as much as possible in the musical education part. I think especially in the States, the schools are really focusing on doing sports. That's a huge industry, but not a lot of energy that goes into the music part. So I think for just a lot of young kids, it's not really a cool thing to learn an instrument anymore. And that's
that's
quite
right.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that's why all of us we have to. I just feel like we have to do something. We have to do more to get into younger people, younger generation.
It's if you look back to your career as a student or as a professional orchestra musician, if you would say something to your college self or your student self, what would it be? And if you could make anything better?
Uh, that's a great question because I always wanted to to do it.
Right,
I always want
right.
to go back to 15 years ago and to tell myself there's a couple of things I would to tell myself, tell the younger me. The first of it is be patient because
Mm,
as I mentioned earlier, patience is the key, especially for us, for all of us. Because if you believe yourself, if you keep working hard, eventually you will you will get something good. Um, that's number one. And then number two, I think the communication is very important. Start from school. What I mean is, um, you you never know what your classmate or schoolmate will become a
mm,
major principal, big orchestra, or the president of university, or some. I
mm.
mean, you just never know. So you really have to start making connections when you are young, not only with your classmates, with your teachers, with with just in general with people. I've lost a lot of great opportunities by just I was very lazy when I was in my early 20s.
Oh wow,
There's
really?
a lot of yeah, I mean there's some like sponsors really loved my playing.
Mm,
They would wrote letters, emails, and then somehow I just never replied. And um, and I still remember there was one of the manager from management, and after one of my short recitals, really we had a dinner. She really loved my playing. She gave me her card, and I never wrote to her.
mm,
And
mm.
and a couple years later, I think she became Lang Lang's manager, and I
Oh
was like, oh,
wow.
oh
Oh
no, that's
wow.
something. At least I'm not saying that I would become her soloist, but I mean that's some connections.
Hmm.
So being a teenager, sometimes you just don't know what, especially as a boys, you never think. You just stop thinking. You just want to do something. So so that's very very important.
Hmm. Yeah, well, take opportunities seriously.
Right. Right.
Well, the biggest thing for us, not yourself anymore, but for people like me, maybe teenagers, college freshmen, or college kids, um, biggest things besides making connections and besides being patient, what would it be?
I would say actually back to musically, I would say fundamental is the most important thing.
Hmm.
I see a lot of young, especially clarinetists, young clarinetists. They are very wonderful. They are very musical. They have a good technique. However, they don't have a great tune. The intonation is not so great. The embouchure is not so great. There's just some. They lack a lot of details.
Hmm.
So 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 I would say fundamentals. So start back to the roots, long tunes, slow scales, focus on your uh, amateurs, focus on your intonation, rhythm, all the basics. That's I think that's what it takes to win an orchestra audition job.
Hmm. And obviously, you still do as much of those as you could. And how much of fundamentals do you work on every day?
Right now, actually, I think I mean right now I'm actually still very busy because taking
Hmm.
over the baby,
Right.
and I still teach some lessons online. But now I do at least 1 hour of the long tunes and the scales.
1 hour,
That's
just
that's
pure
that's
fundamentals.
yes, that's
Hmm.
my goal. Sometimes I would love to do more if I can, if
Hmm.
I have the time.
Right.
Yeah, I think for students, ideally, if I'm a student, if I'm your age, I would spend at least 2 hours. But for those of people who are preparing for orchestra auditions or who is willing to do whatever it takes, just my advice is just be patient.
Be patient.
You know,
Yep.
I think be patient and believe yourself, and
Hmm.
eventually, there's something good is gonna happen.
Hmm. And how much did you practice when you were a student? Um, let's take it to different part because I knew when you were in China, it's different than when you
Right.
in the States. So when you went to this middle school prep music school in China, how much did you practice back then? Every
Oh
day.
boy, I practice
Uh huh.
about 6 to 8 hours a day.
Oh wow. But don't you
Yeah.
feel it's like really painful in the end of the day in your chops?
Yes. Yeah. But when you practice a long time for, I don't know, you get used to it. Maybe
Mm.
I was too young. I I remember there's a couple of times I would feel like I'm about to start to bleed, to hurt myself, then I would
Oh
stop.
really?
Yeah, but the most time I felt fine. I just kept practicing. I just kept going. I would it's obviously in college you get much busier
Right.
than high or middle school. So I would just practice average around 4 hours, sometimes 5 6 hours. So it really depends. If you have a big concert, big competitions, you would practice more. But no less. I would say no less than 4 hours.
Hmm. And what about now as a professional?
Now it's really difficult because as I mentioned, I'm traveling with orchestras, with family. It's very difficult. So when I'm back, when everything's normal, I can practice between 2 to 3 hours.
Hmm. Well, Mr. Zhai, it's such an honor and such my pleasure to host you today and ask all those wonderful questions and get all those wonderful answers. I enjoyed our conversation so much, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did.
I absolutely did. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's my pleasure to being your guest. your show has been wonderful, and I'm really happy to see where you are and how much you have improved. I'm very proud of you. So just keep up the great work.
I just want to say thank you so much for all your mentorship to me and all your guidance for the past 2 to 3 years. It has been life changing.
Of course, it's my pleasure. It's really my pleasure.
We should call it to today. And again, thank you
Right.
for being here.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Zhai. Bye.